Section 8 of Chapter 4 is on the quadratic formula and the discriminant. You may have seen the quadratic formula before. Hopefully you have it memorized, and if you're not, well, there you go. You've got something to do. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4a squared, all divided by 2a. This is the quadratic formula. This is the fail-safe. If nothing else works, if you can't factor it, if you can't work out an equation, you can always plug it into this equation. You can plug in a quadratic equation into this formula, and you will get out whatever the answer may be. In order for this formula to work, you've got to make sure that your equation is in standard form. So don't forget, your standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So in other words, you've got to set the whole thing equal to 0. You've got to have 0 one side and then combine your like terms. So let's just do it. Let's jump right in. Here we go. So I've got the equation x squared minus 5x equals 7, and I want to just use the quadratic formula to solve this equation. But I have to make sure that it's in standard form, and it is not. So step 1 is simply, let's just subtract 7 from both sides. So now x squared minus 5x minus 7 equals 0. So now it's just a matter of determining what is my a, what is my b, and what is my c. So the a, b, and c are the coefficients of your variables. So your a in this case is 1. Your b is negative 5, and your c is negative 7. So let's just put it into the formula. So x equals negative b, so negative of a negative 5 is positive 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so b still is negative 5 squared is 25, minus 4 times a is 1, times c is negative 7. Oh man, I'm at the end of my board. Hopefully you can see that. All over 2a. So 2 times 1 is just 2. So now you just simplify it. All right. So we still have 5 plus or minus the square root of, let's see, let's go 25. Negative 4 times 1 is just negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 7 is positive 28. And that's all over 2. So 25 and 28 is what? 53? So 5 plus or minus the square root of 53 all over 2. And I am going to sneak a peek at my notes to make sure. Yes, I just wanted to be sure. 53, there's no perfect squares in there. So this is your final answer, and you're done. All right? You don't have to go any further. So why don't you try one? This one is a little bit more difficult. You try it first and then come back. All right? Did you do it? Did you pause it? I hope so. All right. So the first thing is to get it into standard form. So we're going to move these things over to here to keep our x squared term positive. So subtract 17x. Not 7, 17x. And we're going to add 25 to both sides. And I kind of do that all in the same step. So you've got 16x squared minus 20, 30, 40 minus 40x plus 25 all equal to 0, which is what we wanted. So then determine what's your a, b, and c. Whew, big numbers, 16, 40, and 25. Oh, don't forget that's a negative 40 and a positive 25. So let's just put them in. X equals negative b. Negative of a negative 40 is a positive 40. Plus or minus the square root, and I'm just plugging them straight into the formula. Plus or minus b squared. B is, again, is negative 40. Negative 40 squared. 4 times 4 is 16, so 160. Is that true? Oh, no. Well, you know what? Look what I just did in my notes. I just said 40 squared. And that works too. All right. And then minus 4 times A, which is 16, times C, which is 25. And that's all over 2 times A. All right, so then let's you can whoop out your handy dandy calculator if you wish. And let's say 40 plus or minus the square root of 1600 minus 4 times 16 times 25. I worked it out, and that is actually 1600. And that's all over 2 times 16, which is 32. So now we end up off of the board. Oh no, I hope you can still see. So we've got 40 plus or minus nothing, just leaves me with nothing. You can leave it blank. 40 over 32, which can reduce down, divided by 8 is 5/4. And so 8 is just 5/4. And in this case, we don't have two answers. We just have one answer because our square root was 0. And so our plus or minus, this term plus or minus 0 is both the same. So 5/4. All right, let's do another one. One more. While I'm erasing, look over, make sure you remember quadratic formula. And then after this one, we're going to look at discriminant. And that is all we have for today. Here we go. The next equation is x squared minus 6x plus 10. Oh, looky there. I was nice to you. I already put it in standard form. All right, so all you do is plug it in. Let's do that and see if this one looks the same or different. Go ahead and pause it and work it and see if you can figure out what the difference is. Go ahead and do it yourself. All right, you're back, but you did it yourself, right? All right, did you see where it was different? All right, the steps are going to be exactly the same until we get to the answer. There's a little bit of a, yeah. Here we go. Negative b, negative of a negative 6 is a positive 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared. So negative 6 squared is 36, minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 10, all over 2 times a is 1, so it's just 2. All right. Now I hope you're seeing I'm going kind of quick because I'm expecting that you can see those a's, b's, and c's really, really easily. So the a is 1, b is negative 6, and c is 10. And that's where I got those numbers to put straight into this formula. All right. So now it's just a matter of simplifying. So x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of 36 minus 40 over 2. And 36 minus 40 is going to be a negative 4. Or is it a negative 14? I thought it was supposed to. Oh, no. There was a different problem. It was negative 14. I was like, this is not right. Okay. Good deal. Okay. So x equals 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 over 2. And this is the part I said, ooh, did you catch it? Can you take the square root of negative 4? Well, yes, you can. Because the square root of 4 is 2. And the square root of negative 1 is I. You know that now. So you've got 6 plus or minus 2i over 2. And so to put this now in standard form, you're just going to split that up and say 6 over 2 plus or minus 2 over 2i. And when that reduces, you have 3 plus or minus I. And you're finished. So plus or minus I has to just stay there because it's an imaginary number. It's not something you can tangibly work out. So 3 plus or minus I is your final answer, and that's what it looks like. All right, the next thing we're going to look at is the discriminant. The discriminant of a number will tell you what type of answers you're going to get. If you'll notice in the examples we just did, sometimes we had 2 answers, sometimes we had 1 answer, and sometimes we had an imaginary answer. So discriminant, if you'll look, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. And if you look over here at your quadratic formula, that b squared minus 4ac is this part that's under the square root symbol. That's the discriminant. B squared minus 4ac. It's not a number somebody just picked out of the air. It's from what's in that formula there. If you take b squared minus 4ac and your answer is positive, then you can know that your final answer will have two real solutions. The reason for that is you're going to end up with a positive number under here. You're going to have plus or minus that positive number. It might be a square root, so you might just have plus or minus the square root of 2. But you'll have two answers because a positive square root of 2 or the negative square root of 2 is two answers, and those are real solutions. So if you put the numbers in for the discriminant and you get a positive answer, then you will have two real solutions. If you put those in and you get a negative answer, then that means that the number under that square root was negative, and that means there's going to be an imaginary number. But because it's plus or minus, that actually is two answers. So you've got two imaginary solutions. If the number under here is 0, remember when we had like 1600 minus 1600, so there's nothing under here? Well, then you just have negative b over 2a, and you don't have that plus or minus aspect of the formula. So in that case, you're just going to have one real solution. All right? So that doesn't tell you what the answers are, but it tells you what types of answers, how many answers, so that when you get to your final answer, yes, I did get it right, or at least I have the right types and numbers. So what you're going to do in the next sections are simply figure the discriminant and determine what type and how many solutions you have. So let's do several. X squared plus 10x plus 23 equals 0. We'll do 3 of them. X squared plus 10x plus 25 equals 0. And x squared plus 10x plus 27 equals 0. All right. So the discriminant is this b squared minus 4ac. I wonder if we can see that. Does that get into the... I don't think it's high enough. Here, we'll do this. All right. So let's figure the discriminant. B squared minus 4ac. That's all. That's the only part you have to do in this. So b is 10. So 10 squared minus 4. A is 1. And c is 23. So let's just work it out. You got 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 23. So 10 squared is 100. And 4 times 23 is 80, 92. So 100 minus 92 is 8. That answer is positive. So I'm going to end up with two real solutions. And that's all I wanted to know on that. All right. So you figure these two, work the discriminant, and then determine, are you going to have two real solutions, two imaginary solutions, or one real solution? All right, work them, then come back. And now here we are back. That's really so cool. All right, so now once again, just b squared minus 4 times a times c. B squared is 10 squared minus 4 times a is 1 times c is 25. So now you have 100 as 10 squared minus 4 times 25 is 100. So your solution to that, to your discriminant, not your solution, but your discriminant is 0. So this equation will have one real solution. All right, and the last one is b squared minus 4 times 1 times 27. So 100 is 10 squared minus, what's 4 times 27? 108. 100 minus 108 is negative 8. So your discriminant is negative. So this answer, or this equation, will end up with two imaginary solutions. Hooey. And that's it. That's all you do on that. So once you know the quadratic formula on these, once you know it and know how to use it, all you do is plug in. The biggest thing is make sure that your equations are in standard form, and then just plug in the A, B, and C. And from there, it's just simple algebra, mathematical computation using your order of operations. Easy sneezy, you got this. See you soon.